Right now, in the USSR, they've unleashed total apocalypse for Putin on the front lines. Pokrovsk stands like a rock, and Kupiansk has become the final nail in the coffin of the Russian army. Our guys stormed in. These frontline videos are already blowing up the internet. Putin's plans have collapsed like a house of cards. Watch for all the details. The situation in Kupiansk is heating up. The Russian army is gradually losing control over the city in the Kharkiv region. Ukraine's defense forces have made a decisive statement. This is a turning point on the front.
There is a trend showing that the Russians are gradually losing control over the city, over the areas where they were present. These are the northern districts, where they entered and tried to gain a foothold. But there are fewer of them there now due to effective countermeasures. It's too early to talk about victory yet. This is a work in progress.
Meanwhile, the Russians are shouting about the so-called Potemkin capture.
Russian troops in Kupiansk have been ordered to simulate control over the city. Waving Russian flags where their small groups are present, the occupiers began putting flags into supply packages for their soldiers, which are dropped on the city using drones. At least one such operation has already taken place. However, such a short-sighted order backfired on the occupiers themselves. It became much easier for Ukrainian forces to target them. As a result, the Ukrainian armed forces were able to thwart all the enemy's plans and respond harshly. A triumph for the Ukrainian armed forces on yet another hot front line. Ukraine's defense forces crushed a Russian landing party near Novopavlivka in the Dnipropetrovsk region. 15 of Putin's soldiers were immediately sent to the afterlife. All enemy groups have been dealt with. Some are in captivity, others are eliminated. The 5th and 9th Brigades lent their support. The reinforcements arrived just in time.
Moreover, the Russians are also losing ground in Donetsk region. Ukraine's defense forces pushed the enemy back near Shakov. Ukrainian land is being methodically liberated from the enemy. What's more, Putin's own soldiers are contributing to this. A new tactic near Pokrovsk. Drone operators are striking their own troops.
Most often, the ones hit are assault troops operating with infiltration tactics. Due to the lack of identification marks and the general chaos, drone operators often mistake them for the enemy and open fire.
According to partisans, losses from such friendly fire already number in the dozens. The reasons for the chaos at the front are becoming obvious. The command is rushing the units to capture Pokrovsk and Mirnograd by the end of November. Losses are enormous, and instead of the fallen, unprepared reinforcements have arrived.
Against this backdrop, open confrontation is growing between the assault troops and UAV operators. Shootouts have been reported, and the assault troops themselves are increasingly accusing the drone operators of allegedly working for the Ukrainians.
Shock at the front. Russia has poured thousands of tons of steel onto Pokrovsk, but has barely advanced at all. Imagine the Russians are throwing all their tanks, drones, and local assault troops into Donbass. And in the end, their epic attack on peaceful Pokrovsk is stalling. Minimal progress despite colossal resources. This is already the failure of the century for the Kremlin. But that's not all. Watch for all the details.
Russia is on fire. An underground section of a main gas pipeline exploded in the Omsk region. And in addition, drones attacked the 2 main thermal power plants in the occupied part of Donetsk region. The city and several other settlements lost power. But that's still not all. The Russians are bombing their own people in the Belgorod region. In 11 days, 8 aerial bombs dropped from Russian planes landed on the heads of local residents, causing fires and destruction.
Cars burned, the fire started. They hit the minibuses. 14 to 18 people were injured.
And while the Russians in Tula are dealing with the aftermath, the occupiers are also getting hit at the front. Drone forces destroyed Russian robots in a critical sector. The Ukrainian armed forces disrupted a new supply scheme for the occupiers. And the battle continues. The advance of the occupation army in the Pokrovsk and Mirnorad area is minimal, despite the colossal resources the enemy has thrown at this direction, which is a priority for them. The occupiers are trying to encircle Ukrainian forces and close the pocket, according to analysts from the Institute for the Study of War.
Ukraine's defense forces are conducting successful operations. Counterattacks are taking place not only in Pokrovsk itself, but also along the Pokrovsk direction. First and foremost, this refers to the successful actions of Ukraine's defense forces in the Shakov area. This, in turn, creates problems for the logistics of the occupying forces and has made it possible to significantly stabilize the situation in the Rodinska area. Rodinska is a key logistics hub for Ukraine's defense forces.
In Kupiansk, Russian troops were unable to encircle the Ukrainian armed forces and are gradually losing positions within the city itself. Ukrainian defenders managed to cut the occupiers off from their main supply routes in the northern part of the city.
In Kupiansk itself, Russian assault groups are effectively cut off from ground logistics. The occupiers' logistics are maintained by using heavy drones. The occupiers in Kupiansk are employing the so-called infiltration tactics of small assault groups and the flag pumpkin tactic. That is, by infiltrating groups of 2 to 3 people, they try to create an illusion. By installing the Russian Aquafresh, they create the appearance of the presence of an occupying army unit in certain areas of Kupiansk.
France is developing a new generation of SAMPT air defense systems. Ukraine will be the first country to receive these systems. The delivery dates have not yet been disclosed. As Zelensky stated, this new generation of air defense systems represents a very serious capability for intercepting Russian ballistic missiles.
This is essentially the European equivalent of the Patriot missile defense systems. At present, according to various estimates, up to 2 SAMP-T systems have already been delivered to Ukraine's defense forces. A SAMP-T system consists of 6 launchers and a radar station. Currently, according to open sources, the French army itself has up to 10 SAMP-T systems in service.
Meanwhile, Poland is preparing to send territorial defense troops to patrol key sections of critical railway infrastructure in the east of the country. After a sabotage was carried out on the line near Lublin, the Polish General Staff is now preparing for a possible attack.
Let me remind you, back in 2015, Ben Hodges stated that the Suwałki corridor is the Achilles heel of NATO countries. And let me remind you, the Suwałki corridor is a land corridor that, according to the Russian plan, it is supposed to connect the Republic of Belarus with the Kaliningrad region and accordingly pass through the territory of Poland and the Baltic states. That is why the Polish side takes the possibility of a direct confrontation with the Russian Federation very seriously.
Moreover, Ukrainian military personnel may be involved in defending the eastern borders of the EU from Russia in the event that the war ends with a peace agreement.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine today. Join us now. A bombshell from Macron. Ukraine is getting 100 Rafales and 8 air defense systems. Zelensky returned from Paris with the biggest gift yet. The skies over Ukraine will be patrolled by armadas of fighter jets, and every Russian missile will be shot down before it even gets close. This isn't just aid, it's a complete game changer in the air. What will Ukrainian aviation look like in the near future? Watch to find out everything important you need to know.
France is strengthening Ukraine's defense, particularly in the areas of air defense and aviation. President Volodymyr Zelensky announced that our country will be able to receive 100 Rafale F-4 aircraft, powerful French radars, 8 SAM-TT air defense systems, as well as 6 launchers. In addition, Ukraine is receiving 55 electric locomotives, which will provide extra support for the country's infrastructure.
What was signed with the president is more of a permit for delivery. But with the Dassault company, that will be an actual contract for the delivery of aircraft. So we have a political decision. But a separate contract will need to spell out all the financial terms under which we will receive these aircraft.
It was stated that President Zelensky did not disclose the full list of aid for security reasons. However, even the published list could create significant problems for the Russians.
It rather belongs to the heavy 4th plus generation fighter jets. Well, if we consider the modern version of the Rafale, in terms of takeoff weight, number of hardpoints and combat load, it basically matches the Russian Su-35 and Su-37 fighters, meaning the most modern Russian fighter jets. The Rafale and Gripen are being equipped with Meteor missiles. This missile doesn't use a solid fuel engine, but a ramjet, which gives it a much greater range. Initially, its range was announced as 200 kilometers, but now in promotional materials, the figure of 300 kilometers has been repeatedly stated. So this is a missile that it is not inferior in its characteristics to the Russian R-37M missile, but it will be a permanent weapon.
Since the summer of 2024, American F-16S have been carrying out combat missions in Ukraine. To further strengthen our air defenses, our country intends to purchase Gripen fighters from France. These aircraft can compete with the F-16S and more.
The F-16 and Mirage 2000 fighter jets that we have received are currently being used for approximately 70% of the time for air defense missions, and the Mirage is actually being used 100% of the time, mainly for air defense tasks.
Earlier, Zelensky and Macron signed a declaration of intent to cooperate in the acquisition of defense equipment for Ukraine.
Unfortunately, our financial capabilities as a country that is very peaceful and has been at war for 3.5 years do not allow us to purchase aircraft. For now, we are only being given aircraft.
On the eve of his visit to France, Volodymyr Zelensky announced a historic agreement and a significant strengthening of Ukrainian aviation. In addition to France, Spain is also preparing an aid package for our country. At the moment, Ukraine's priority is to strengthen its air defense.